Hello, everyone. Happy beautiful Wednesday. We are here for today's deep dive session on Investing 101. I have our wonderful guide, Charles, here. He'll get an introduction in just a moment, but I have some things to say, some things to share before we go ahead and get started. So, we're life guides. For some of you, this might be your first event. For some of you, you may be big fans, big lovers of life guides. Drop in the chat 111 if this is your first time here, and drop in the chat 222 if you're just a super fan and you love us. And if you're somewhere in the middle, just say 222 for fun because I'll get you there. I'll get you to love us. But we started this series. We're in the middle of a financial well-being quarter. So I wanted to look at the end of the year and what we're doing, right? We have the holidays upcoming. A lot of us are traveling, buying gifts, and then also right after that is tax season. So there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot that's shifting, even in open enrollment. I just went to do open enrollment to make sure that my benefits were all good. And my guy was like, everything increased by 30% for all the insurance premiums. I'm like, cool, glad I can afford that. But for everyone else, maybe it's a stressful time, right? There's a lot happening. There are a lot of changes. There are a lot of times when we're swiping a card or looking at financial statements. So while we're already in this season of seeing that there is a lot happening, and knowing that it already causes a decent amount of stress for people, I figured why not take this time and do financial well being and get people in a good money mindset, give people the tools and resources so they can start making some moves, and then set people up for a long term journey of financial well being, hopefully throughout the rest of your life. Because the fun part about finances is once you get a handle on your finances and once you love financial responsibility and you find joy in watching your accounts increase, in watching your investments increase, in watching your debts decrease, it becomes a very fun journey and that becomes a very foundational part of you. So I have to give you all a real, lived, true disclaimer because before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that this session is for educational and informational purposes only. Life guides and our speakers are not licensed financial advisors, and nothing shared today should be considered financial, investment, tax, or legal advice. We encourage you to use today's insights as a foundation for your own learning and to consult a qualified financial professional before making any personal financial decisions. Thank you for your understanding. And now we can move on from that part of the conversation. So, I've got some things to share with you. You all have been doing a lot of work. You've been putting in the work and I've been seeing it. We started this financial well-being series back in October. And we've done a lot. So while I'm telling you all of the work that we've done, I want to know what is one word that describes how you feel about money and doing this financial work. It does not need to be a positive word. Some of you might still be eternally stressed out. I think it took me 4 to 5 months or maybe a year or maybe a year and a half to finally stop being eternally stressed out. It's real. It takes some time. And we talked about this on Motivational Monday. We're just growing 0.3% every day. We're not going from 0 to 100 real quick, 0.3%. And if we grow 0.3% every day and we focus on that, by the end of the year, we will have grown over 100%. What does that mean? You'll be an entirely new person. So we've covered why money feels so good. With Alvaro, we talked about the neuroscience of money. We talked with Candace about spicing up your relationship with money and how to start setting financial dates, how to start feeling good about your money. We talked to Charles, who's here with us today, about why more money won't make you happier. And so many of you in that episode specifically said, like, wow, gratitude. Thank you for the reminder of gratitude, specifically when it comes to money, because I haven't felt that in a really long time. That's real. We talked about how to afford the life you're living. That was the episode with me. Make your mind make you money, and then wiring your mind for wealth. So we've really, really dived in, and I want to share. We had two really cool testimonials that came through. There is a testimonial box at the bottom of the survey that pops up at the end. Please, if you have testimonials, leave them there. But one person said, I canceled all of my unneeded subscriptions and freed up $200 a month. That's amazing. $200 a month. That's $2,400 a year that this person would have been spending and not even aware of, right? But being on these sessions, being aware, hearing the weekly conversations, sometimes twice a week during the weeks that we have two events like this week and next week, doing the work. Without doing this work, without being here, there's a high likelihood that they may still, at the end of the next 12 months, have spent $2,400 on unnecessary and unneeded subscriptions. So, congratulations. And for those of you who are here, drop in the chat what you would do with $2,400. I would throw myself a 30th birthday party. I did my budget for my birthday party. It's a little bit less than that amount, but it's a birthday party. I'm having food catered, decorations, cool cake, fun outfit, all the things. That would cover my 30th birthday party. So cool. For some of you, it might cover bills. It might take you out of debt. It might give you travels. Um, Maybe you have family members that you need to visit or want to visit that you don't have time or space to, or maybe not the finances to, and maybe that opens it up. So money gives us possibility, and that's why today's conversation is so fun and exciting, because we're talking about investing 101. We're diving into how to make your money make you money. So, and one more testimonial before I introduce Charles. Instead of buying to make myself feel good, I'm asking, is this needed or wanted? And what will I give up if I purchase this thing? So again, the mindset shifts. We're understanding, last month was all about money mindset. So we're understanding, what are the consequences if I buy this? Even this morning, I was on Depop wanting to thrift this sweater. It was only $30, right? And I was like, oh, I should get that. And then I was like, is it worth? I want to start a new business in the next year, a little side hustle, a little vibe. Is it worth not being able to do that, having this sweater? The answer is no. It's not worth it at all. And it makes it easier when we start understanding the consequences and our larger goals that we're working towards. It makes it a lot easier to be smarter right here and right now. So we have the wonderful Charles here with us. He is one of our guides. We have two things that we do at Life Guides. We have our live events, which is right here, right now. We do the deep dive mentorship, and motivational Monday. And there's always a guide on those sessions, unless things get crazy, and maybe once a year you get just me. But outside of that, there are always guides there. And then you also have the opportunity to do personalized one-on-one guide journeys where you have someone saying, hey, this is where you are and this is where you want to go. Let me help you get there. So we have Charles here. His superpower is that he helps individuals combine practical discipline with their aspirations to build a successful and meaningful life. Isn't that just what I said? And his key support areas, he does a lot. So outside of investing, he helps navigate the military and VA disability filing process, managing traumatic brain injuries, head issues, and living with physical pain, fostering thriving relationships through insights from over 20 years of marriage and raising daughters, planning and executing small businesses, including raising capital, managing people, building clients, and overcoming failure, exploring higher education, spiritual awakening, and finding personal meaning, understanding stocks and general investments. So if any of those 6 key areas really speak to you, Charles is a guy that you can book a call with. You can have a quick 15-minute intro, see what it's about, see if this is someone that you want to work with, and then I'll show you other guides at the end who can help you on your journey as well. So Charles, thank you so much for being here. Can you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and then a little bit of intro to Investing 101?
Sure, Kira. It's very nice being here once again. And a little bit about myself. I'm recently retired from the military. Um, Along with the military, I've had a business for most of my life. I enjoy working for myself and finding my own self-worth. And that has taken me very far in life. At the same token, as she's mentioned, I've been married for quite a long time now, and I have 2 wonderful daughters that is probably around Kira's age. And, at the end of the day, I just see the beautifulness in life and the gratefulness that I have for having the experience to live life. And with that said, we can jump over to investments. And so I guess when I was younger, I did a lot of I was in venture capital, so I hopped into venture capital, and that's where I got my first learning lesson in investments in the 90s during the dot-com era. I made a lot of money and I blew a lot of money. At the same token, things were new to me, things were new to a lot of people on how to invest online. And it was like gambling. It's like going to the casino. I mean, one day you're up 20 grand, the next day you've lost 20 grand. And it was very intense. And over time, I've learned to calm things down and become more practical and not take things to that extreme intensity. It's almost like a drug, you know. And so I don't, I've learned a lot in between there that there's so many different ways to make money, and it's just learning how to make that money work for you.
And I have a question for those of you who are here. How many of you feel like you have the knowledge right here, right now, about how to make your money and investments work for you? You can drop 555 in the chat. I feel like I hear this often. We regularly talk about the things that we didn't learn in school, right? And I'm sure that the chat is going to show us exact same thing. Like we weren't really set up properly, right? Some of us had to learn the really hard way. I had to learn the really hard way. Last year, I was living with my mom at almost 30 years old, paying back $30,000 of debt. Now, a year and a half later, I am in an entirely different situation. But it takes time, right? And it happened because I knew how to be set up for financial well-being because I had to learn, and I had to learn the really, really hard way. The fun part is that I feel like the hard part of it all is past me, and now I get to start looking forward and doing some really cool, exciting things. So, Charles, diving into this whole entire topic, it's been fun because I've paid off debt, I've learned how to save money, but I actually have no idea about that investing. I do a little bit of crypto just because one of my mentors is like, just do a teeny tiny bit, cool. But outside of that, this is all new to me, and I'm really excited to learn. And I think this is a really valuable conversation. And I know we'll talk about the generations as we continue on to the conversation, but I think it's valuable from any walk of life, right? Like I've done financial well-being events for individual clients of Life Guides, and there was a 24-year-old dude once who was like, I have no reason not to buy the 200 pairs of Jordans twice a month because the only goals that I have in my life are to own a home and to retire. I don't want to own a home for another 15, 20 years, and I don't want to retire for another like 40 years. So what am I even working towards? I can't understand and conceptualize that. Or there's the older generation that's like, oh wow, I need to make my money work for me now because I would like to retire and actually live and enjoy my life. So regardless of where you're at, this is a great conversation. These are great foundations that you're going to have instilled in you during this conversation. So Charles, the foundational question of it all. Why is investing such an important part of building financial security and freedom?
I think the easiest way to explain it is we've all been told the wrong mindset. We're always investing every day of our lives. And if I can get people to change their mindset of or perception of how they're looking at things, it might make it a little bit better to understand where we're going at the end of the day. So most people don't think of a relationship as an investment, but you're investing in someone. You're putting time into them. You're hedging your future. You're saying, this is going to be the best bet for my future. So I'm going to invest my time. So even relationships are a form of investment. It's not a economic form of investment, but you're planning on getting something more out of it than what you can do yourself. The same thing like a vehicle. We're investing in a vehicle. We invest in our safety. We try to move into a certain type of neighborhood or a certain home because of it makes us feel better or safe about ourselves. So it is a form of investment. So if we understand that basic foundation that everything we're doing in life has some type of investment principle behind it. It may not equate to money, it may equate to emotional gratification, satisfaction, safety, but it's still a form of investment. Now, all we're doing is changing that mindset, that concept over to financial well-being. And this is the big trick. So it's like I tell people, it's great to be young and have a relationship, but it has been a greater journey when I got married and having the time to spend with one person to unravel them, the different layers of what love is, because my perception has changed. But that took time to understand a very deep and passionate love for someone. So investments work the same way. It takes time to see the growth of it. And if I think of investment like a relationship, they both require time. And that requires me to be patient. In other words, there's no instant gratification. And once we get past that instant gratification, now we're getting into how long of this journey can I take to allow things to happen and watch things unfold. So it's kind of like a slow motion rose. I'm sitting there watching it blossom and bloom so that one day I can actually smell the flower and go, isn't this a gorgeous flower? And that's where I think that we're trying to get to is how to get people to understand that.
It makes me think too. I love the analogy with family as well. It's funny. I definitely had the whole doom and gloom perspective of the world ending and blah blah blah. And I was like, I don't want to have children. And now I've got such a different perspective. I'm an indigenous Taino woman. I understand generations. I understand the legacies that we live. I understand that I don't live my life just for myself, but also I 100% want children in this lifetime. And it's funny because being a dink is so normal. And like, if you want to be a dink, dual income, no kids, right? Um, but I think about like what it would look like in the older ages of life, 60s, 70s, when maybe life is slowing down, and you don't have that legacy that you've built for yourself, right? Versus building the legacy of family. If you're married, right, it's going, or maybe not even married, you have a child. That child is going to grow and take time, and it's going to take 20 years, 18 to 20 years for them to even become an adult. And then it may take another 10 to 20 years for them to find a partner, and then maybe they're going to have children. So all of a sudden, not only do you have children, you have grandchildren, and there's a possibility that you might have great grandchildren, and that's an investment into something so much bigger. And that's the same thing with money, right? Like,
Yes.
if we just take in money and spend money by the time we're 60, 70, it's just going to be what we make and maybe what we didn't spend, and we'll have a lot less. um Versus if you're investing and you're letting that compound over time and take that time to grow and become something bigger and create, you will have more resources, more opportunities, more security, more safety. And then if you do have a family as well, that is a generational legacy. When you leave behind not only money, because we've seen some trust fund babies not be the greatest humans, but if you leave behind money and a legacy and good values, and you teach people how to use their money properly, that ripples infinitely out into the world. And I love that, Kelly. She says, my daughters are my greatest investment. Exactly. My mom says that to me all the time. I'm like, okay, mom. She's like, you'll get it when you have your own kids. I'm like, I know. So, with that, I think we do have a common denominator conversation that we have, where we say, I'll never be able to afford blank. I'll never be able to afford that house. I'll never be able to afford starting my own business. So we have these ideas of what we want for our lives, and we instantly tell ourselves that it's not an opportunity and it's not a possibility. Why, one, do you think that keeps happening? And then two, how can that how can investing help shift that story regardless of our age?
So, when I think about why, yesterday I watched on YouTube a PBS Frontline, and I believe I sent you over the link to it. Uh, it took like four children that were growing up in very poor neighborhoods, and it followed them through their journey. And they're up to about 25 years old now. And what caught me by guard is because I can relate to this situation. I didn't grow up rich. And if it wasn't for my parents' mindset and perception of life, I could have been a lot worse off. But because they had such a great outlook on life, it opened up opportunities for me. And this is, I don't think a lot of us think about the perception of life, how valuable and important it is. So
Wait,
I,
can I stop you there?
sure,
When we're talking about we don't understand how important the perception of life is, you're talking about the way that we see life. You're
yes,
talking about how important the way that we view and experience life.
life.
Okay,
So it's kind of like I hate this is the extreme analogy I give. How is it that a child can be taken, locked up, and fall in love with the person who is abusing them? So my perception, or the average person's perception, is they should hate this person. But to keep such a open heart, to let your heart guide you, to keep that openness of a mind that you can change the perception of the situation and say, I love this person and I have no ill feelings towards this person. That takes a great individual to realize, even in extreme situations, I have control. It's my perception of the situation. I have control. I can sit there and just go through the grueling pain of being in a bad situation, or I can flip it to my well-being and say, I'm in a good situation. So this says volumes to the character of perception and the power that perception can have in someone's life. And this is where I go, if we don't change our perception or understand how perception can hold us back, and then now we can get into these doom and gloom scenarios, or we can get in that life is just abundant. And that's kind of where I I like watching shows or watching people how they change their lives, because it gives hope for other people that I can do that too. And that gives me inspiration. And that's better than watching, a horror movie or some action movie. So I love those type of stories. And after a while, you start learning from them, what did all these people have in common? And the number one thing was their perception, which allowed them to move on with other greater possibilities of life. And so when it comes down to it, the why is we need to change everyone's perception of how to invest, because when only 4.6% of America actually has enough for retirement, there is something wrong with our perception. There is something greatly wrong. You know, there's, I guess the government statistics show that only the medium American has about 88,000 saved for retirement. That's that's not enough to retire off of. You can't do it off of that. So these perceptions of what we're doing, we're carrying the wrong perception. It shouldn't be that difficult to be able to retire one day. And that requires a game plan. And like marriage, it requires time. So that's, I think, the big question here is why it's so important to me as a person is to share that knowledge of how.
Exactly. And you touched on the generations, and I know that you and I talked about this in our planning call. Um, what does someone need if they are starting their investing journey right now and they're younger, maybe teens, 20s, maybe early 30s, versus what does someone need if they're in their 50s and 60s and they're on this call right now and they're hearing what you're saying and they're like, "Oh my god, that's me." It because you and I have talked about how it's two different tracks. It's the same principles, but it two different starting points.
Correct. So if you're young, you have time on your side. And the more time means that the more potential opportunity you have. And as you get older, you're shortening down the time frame. And I will tell you, if you're 20 years old, life will pass you like a blink of an eye. You'll look back one day and you go, "Oh my God, I'm 50." And it's that fast. It doesn't feel like it as you're living it, but it is that fast. And this is where that conception, if I was 20 years old today, knowing what I know now, I would have a solid talk with my parents and I would stay home for at least 5 years. And I would say, "Mom, Dad, I'll clean the house once a week, whatever. But let me save half of my paycheck and the other half let me go party and have my fun as a youth. But taking half of my paycheck and putting in some type of investment at 20 years old with no responsibility or bills, that would be enormous. I could buy a house at the end of that. I could take care of my retirement for the rest of my life, and then go start living." So I don't think most people understand that value that just starting off after high school, if I had to do one thing, that would probably be the biggest game changer that I could tell the average young person. Stay home and make a deal with your parents, and then take the steps that we're going to talk about and apply them, and you'll be okay. And I
So
think that's the
what about for the older generation? What I know that they have less time.
time.
And I know that that can be very dooming and very daunting.
So for the older generation, you need a lot of money to make up for the time that you've lost. So if a young person can get away with saving $100 to $200 a month over time, and then they're going to have a few $1 million. So now if you're coming back at 40 compared to a 20-year-old, you're going to have to double up on that money because then now you have to make up for the time that you've lost. So that means that you have to put more money towards it. The big issue is if you haven't done it up until this point, I can't see someone sitting down and dumping $400 to $800 a month into some type of retirement plan for the long term because of that's you haven't been trained to do that. You haven't trained yourself yet to do that. So taking such a large number, I think, is setting someone up for failure. And this is the reason why, like when we were talking yesterday for a few minutes, I go, it's the same principles and you have to start off at the same place. Because of if we don't learn how to crawl first, I can't tell someone to go run, knowing that they're going to trip, fall all over themselves when they haven't even learned how to walk. And that's dangerous to do. So I like to keep things simple and stupid and say, today let's do simple and stupid, but tomorrow you'll be ready to run and you should be better off than the 20-year-old kid because you should be able to make more money than the 20-year-old kid. But let's get you crawling. Let's get you a little bit of experience underneath your belt and then go take off and run. And but I don't want to tell you to go take off and run today when I know you haven't been doing the crawling yet. So right now it's about the perception of mindset, and I want to get people's perception thinking correctly so that when they walk out, they're not only thinking about, okay, is this a good dollar investment for me, but how am I investing the rest of my life? So that this way we can correlate investment to savings as far as for a greater purpose in our lives by looking at everything else. So perception. If I want to be rich, I have to think that I'm already rich. I have to live as if I'm rich. I can't act like a poor person. That doesn't mean that I can go out and buy anything I want to. Not even a rich person can go out and buy anything they want to. It's having that attitude and that perception and seeing everything in that value. So right now, I'm talking about the perception because I want every person to know if you're thinking about it all the time, am I making a good investment? Is my Starbucks coffee a good investment for me? Or is the McDonald's coffee maybe a little bit better investment for me? This is getting you thinking in a mindset of how do I make money? The value of money, not the value of, oh, the Starbucks coffee is cool, McDonald's coffee is not cool looking, but maybe they taste similar enough that I can get away with it. So this is that perception we got to get to.
I love this. Kelly, that's a great question. You all can ask your questions in the chat. Um, we have the deep dive mentorship live next week, and that's really more of an open Q&A. So we'll probably talk about a little bit about what you're asking, Kelly, but just a plug for for next week's mentorship call. That's where we really dive in, and you'll have unlimited time, space to be able to ask your question and to have it answered. And I'm going to drop the link for that in the chat right now, and then we can continue on.
Now, for Kelly's question, I think we'll end up answering it.
Cool.
Maybe not that exact, but I think she'll be able to get a little bit of what she's looking for. And then with next week's session, it'll take it a little bit further for
Kelly goes, I need all the help I can get. Girl, you are not alone. That's why we
her.
bring the information in these sessions, but really having a guide on your journey is how you're going to be able to make the change because well, there money is just so foundational. We've had it, we've been around it, we see it all day, every day. We have so much that's ingrained here that we cannot undo it alone. I tried to undo it alone for 5 years, and it wasn't until I had a guide that I was actually able to get out of the $30,000 of debt. The 5 years prior to that was just stress, infinite stress. I know I have a problem. I don't know how to get out of it. I know I have a problem. I don't know how to get out of it. And I would just ignore it. I don't want to deal with it. But finally, I was like, cool, I got someone to hold my hand. I have no idea what they're doing, but they know what they're doing. I trust them. Let's do this. So that's why we build this programming so that you all can have that exact same experience. Because how cool would it be a year or two from now to look back and be like, oh my gosh, I'm debt free. I'm living the life that I want. And also, I know that everything I want for my future, I can get by myself because I have developed the skills and the tools to get there. There's something that you said, Charles, that I just wanted to circle back on. Oh, just a recap, right? If you are young, you have time as your advantage. When I started working with my guide, I was 27. She was like, cool, we'll get you to being a millionaire by the time you're 50. That's like the whole goal with her. Amazing, cool. But if I had told her I was any age over 30, we wouldn't have had that same conversation because it's different, right? I have a lot more time to put in littler amounts. But what Charles is saying also is that regardless of how old you are, you need to build the mental foundations to get you to where you need to go. So it'll take a little bit of time to build that if you're older, and then we'll jump up and have it be more money, but you still have to develop those habits. So, again, why it's so important to have a guide on your journey. So, yeah, what resources, tools, or people can help us make informed investment decisions? And what are those investment opportunities that we have right now that we might not even know that we have access to and can start utilizing?
So the first one I would like to do is like real estate. Um, Most people confuse buying a home with investment. They think of their home as investment. And a home is not the same as a real estate investment. So I want to get people out of this mindset. When I buy a home, I'm not looking at my home where my kids grew up in, where my wife lives in, where my kids have put dents in the walls and drawn all over the walls, and I'm constantly dumping money into the house. It's not a great investment. So I call it a home. A house I treat different. It's not a place where I'm going to have my kids grow up in, and it's not a place that I'm going to set roots. So I want people to understand a home isn't necessarily what I would call a investment as far as what's good for your wallet. It's more like this is where I want to raise my kids. This is where I want to get old at. This is where I'm going to make memories. And because of if you think of it as an investment, it's a lousy investment. I'll tell you right now. The amount of money you will sink into a home over time will end up costing you more between that, the mortgage, and everything else. That if you do the math on it, it's you're not walking out ahead. So let's not. So I'm going to move home out of the way. If you have the economic capabilities at this point, property has always been a good investment. In other words, property never goes down. It's a slow investment normally, but it can be a good investment.
So when you
Now,
say property, you're talking about just land with nothing built on it.
land with nothing built on it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when we get into housing, I have a mixed feeling on. And I hear the good side to housing investment and I hear the bad side. So housing investment means that you're going to rent out the property to someone. And but you're taking all the responsibility for if any damages is done to the house. So you could end up losing money in the short term, but the the house is still going to have value in it. It's just that it can nickel and dime you to death that you feel like you're not getting ahead. At the same token, if you're very good and you work with someone who has great knowledge on housing investment, you could end up making quite a bit of money off of housing investment. So I don't, it's like anything, there's good and bad with it. The second bad thing with housing is that most people prefer to keep housing where it's in their reach. In other words, I can drive down the street or I can get there in a couple hours to keep an eye on my investment. If you like to travel, it's not really the best type of investment because I can't pick it up and take it with me. So understanding some of the rules to things, there's other ways to invest that gives you that flexibility to get up and move. Now, when we go down the list, if I go into 401ks, which I think you should have some members that may have access to 401ks through their work, these vehicles, depending on how your 401k is set up, it may be a good investment or it may be a bad investment. But I do like 401k plans for people who have never invested before because of if it's through your work, they're pulling the money out of your paycheck before it hits your bank account, so you can't spend it. So it's forcing you to do something that you should do on your own, and that works great. Now, if your 401k has where the employer's contributing something to it, you should read into it enough to understand how to max it out so that you're getting the most from the employer. So let's say if your employer gives 5 to 6% of whatever you're putting in. The way I look at it is I've already made 5 to 6% for the year without doing anything. So I didn't have to lose any money. I didn't have to bet on anything. All I had to do was stick in X dollars into that 401k, and the employer is going to put in 5 to 6%. I would match that out because that's free money. And I like free money. So if I could pick up free money, I would take it. So I would always tell people to understand your 401k plan and also see if you're capable of managing it. In other words, being able to log in with whoever the financial company is who's managing the 401k plan. They will sometimes be able to allow you to choose different types of investments as far as if you want a high risk, a medium risk, or a low risk. So, and that's where I would tell you to sit down with a guide to understand how to work your 401k plan. If you bring that type of information, you can then start customizing things towards yourself. But this is just very general. That's one thing I will always tell people. If there's a 401k plan through your work offered, I would dig into it hard. And if your employer is giving you any type of money towards that 401k plan, do not turn down free money, period. The next one, I guess we can get into is crypto. So, crypto, I like crypto, but I don't like crypto. In other words, it has no proven track record yet. Now, that's the first reason I don't like it. The second reason I'll tell you I don't like it is someone made crypto. So, since another individual made crypto, it means that it's flawed in some way because we as humans we do not do anything perfection. We're not perfect human beings. We're muddy, we're messy. We come with bags of problems, bags of goodness. It's a whole mixed bag. So if someone tells me that something is my money is safe and secure in a system that is not proven yet, that is man-made, and I don't see what's backing it, and then it makes me a little bit more leerier until I see that there's sometimes a rule, some type of rule set to the game. And I've dabbled a little bit with crypto. It's very expensive to get into crypto because you have to the money exchangers, so you have to change your money from dollars into crypto, and they can charge a percentage on that. Then when you want to sell out of the crypto, you have to go back through the money changer again, and they will charge you a percentage on it to get it back over to your bank account. So it's very expensive to get in and out. And there's no rules or regulations on those fees. So until there's some type of, you know, I guess rules to the game put in place, it's very much a question mark of would I stick a large amount of cash into the crypto uh, industry when things are still being established and you don't know how it's going to work out. Someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. The problem is if I pick the wrong crypto, I could be that loser. And since it doesn't have a proven track record, I don't tell the average person that I would jump into crypto right away unless you understand what you're getting into and is it your risk level. If you want to do a small little bit just for fun, I'll tell you go ahead. But to turn around and to bank what I'm looking to either purchase a home with or to retire with, I don't know if I would use that vehicle for say, unless I was very educated at what I was doing. So that gets me into crypto. Um, Besides stock, did we have another area that we were going to cover?
Stocks and bonds. I don't know if those are the same or if they're different. I know
They're
nothing.
different.
The only one I know a little bit about is crypto.
Okay. Bonds are backed by the US government. So when you buy a bond, you're basically loaning the federal government money. Now, when you loan the federal government money, they give you a small interest rate, which is normally higher than a bank will give you an interest on. It's the safest place you can park your money. So if the US government falls, you don't have to worry about it. Your house is gone, your job is probably gone, everything's probably gone. So, logically speaking, The best place to stick your money is inside the US government and take your interest.
I have a question with that.
Sure.
If the world got crazy and whatever shut down, say that banks weren't giving, so this is a real thing, right?
Right.
If the world shut down and every single person went to the bank and tried to get out all of their money, most people would not be able to, because the bank does not store the amount that every person has in their bank account. They only store a small, small, small fraction of that in the actual bank. So what
Correct.
you're telling me is when we invest in bonds, that's not the way that it happens when we're doing this with the federal government?
Correct. So the
Okay.
federal government controls the printing press, so they can print all the money they want to. So their bills will always get paid.
Mm.
What people don't understand is, so I'll get off topic just for a minute. So the US is basically a war machine. And as long as you understand that we're constantly always at war, so we're like Rome, and we're controlling the waterways throughout the world. We're kind of like the police officers. So what I tell people is, good or bad, we're the biggest bully on the block. And I like living underneath the biggest bully, and I understand sometimes the US does things that hurt people, and they do things that help people. But if I look at it, I would much rather live underneath the biggest bully on the block, which is the US, compared to the Soviet Union or other countries that are that don't treat their citizens with any type of respect. So this doesn't make up that the US isn't the biggest bully on the block. It doesn't make up that it does bad things sometimes and it does wonderful things other times. And I realize that being a US citizen, but I'm proud to be a US citizen because I know what opportunities it provides me compared to other countries in the world. So I take no shame in saying that I live underneath the biggest bully in the block. I'm happy to say that. So the biggest bully, it will not let its dollar fail. It will not. It provides the stability for a country, and it will attack whoever is trying to take it off of the block. That's the reason why we're constantly um, kind of a war machine, because if we realize that if we're not that dominant power, we're no longer able to pay our bills. So that's the reason why I go. The safest place for your dollar is in T-bills. In any of these investment vehicles, the safest place is T-bills because the biggest bully is going to protect its ability to maintain its dollar value.
So a T-bill is a bond.
A T-bill is a bond. It's a U.S. Treasury bond.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We've got like five-ish more minutes for conversation before I do a quick little demo. Tell us about stocks.
Okay.
And then also
Stocks.
we need a little bit. I want you to tell us about stocks and then a little bit of how to get started. You don't have to give us the whole thing. The whole entire point is once this session ends, we have the live mentorship call next week. That's where you get to come on and be like, hey, I'm this age. I'm going through this. What do you think is my best plan of action? Or, hey, this is my situation here. I actually want to set my kids up well. What do you think is the best plan of action? And that's really building a starting point, ideally for you to have a guide journey where someone is helping you long term on this, because whether you like it or not, money is here to stay. So we have to do something with it. So take it away, Charles.
Okay. If I was starting, and the first thing I would do is go out on the internet and open up a account. Either there's a bunch of them out there. There's E-Trade, there's Charles Schwab, there's Webull, and there's a bunch more than that. If you open up a cash account, do not get a margin account. A margin account means that you can take a loan against your money, and you do not want to do that. You only, in the beginning stages, you just need a cash account. Put $100 a month in there if that's all you have. Sit down, figure out your budget. So if you have a 401k, max that out, then add an additional $100 a month if if you have a 401k. If you don't have a 401k plan, if you're 20 years old and you're just starting out and you don't have family support, whatever you can, a dollar, $5, $20, every paycheck. It has to be consistent. Put it into this account. You can have it where once you deposit your paycheck on a certain day of the month, you can have it just automatically transfer over to one of these accounts and be done with it.
And by these accounts, you're talking about a stock account, not a
So
general cash account. This is specifically for trading stocks.
so all of these companies will allow you to pull money in and out like a bank account will, but it's designed specifically to buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 401ks. It does everything that you would want it to do.
Okay.
So these vehicles are allowed underneath the federal government to to give you access to purchasing, and they have rules. The next rule, if I was buying a stock, pick companies that you already know. Look around your home, things that you already purchase, use. If you like them, go out and investigate those companies. Pick American companies in the beginning. Choose like NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange companies. Stick with American companies. The reason being is that there are rules in place that protect Americans from American companies. And if it's a foreign company, they don't necessarily have to apply to American rules. So if you're not savvy enough yet on how to use some of these instruments, leave them alone. The last thing I will say about the stock is if you're trying to save money, do not stick it in a bank account. Open up one of these accounts. Here's the ticker symbol for it. It's SGov. It's a ticker symbol. And what it is, it's an ETF. ETF is kind of like a mutual fund. But what you do is you put your money into it at the beginning of the month. And at the end of the money, excuse me, at the end of the month, you withdraw your money with interest. Then at the beginning of the month, you redeposit the money back in there and it keeps recycling back through. So it's an ETF that only holds T-bills in it. Yes.
No, you only
And
have 1 minute left.
with that said, that's the easiest place to save your money at and to have quick access to it. Move on to your next one.
Beautiful. So, the whole entire point of this conversation, it's a lot of information. An Investing 101 60-minute session is a lot of information and really just the basics for you to start understanding that there are resources, tools, and opportunities out there for you. Really having support, guidance, and someone who's done this before, who knows that if you do that, you're probably going to have this result that you might not like, versus if you do this, you're going to get this result that's going to get you to where you want to go. That's really the greatest gift. So if you're leaving this conversation today, feeling like you got a lot of information and you don't know what to do with it, that's perfect, because we have our guides here who can help you figure out what to do with it. So we do have our live mentorship session happening next week. And that is next Wednesday at this exact time. And we also have our guides as well that can show you everything. So I'm going to give you guys a live demo, just show you our Life Guides platform, how it works, and how you can find a guide to help you with these specific, with any of this investing. Or maybe you're like, I want to get out of debt, or maybe you're like, I want to have a better financial future. The opportunities are there and it's all available to you. So each of your companies has a unique hyperlink. It's app.lifeguides.com slash, typically the most common acronym for your organization, or maybe just the organization name. Your HR team can have those, or there's a survey that pops up at the end. If you want your direct link, just put that in the survey and I'll send it to you. But this it's at literally as easy as one, two, three. So you'll go to find a new guide. We're going to go to growth, purpose, and prosperity. That's where we start focusing on our money. We'll go to next step. And from here, we're going to do budgeting and saving. So you view guides, it's going to come up with guides who can help you with that. Of course, Charles pops up because he is one of our guides who's great for that. But you also have 8 others who can support you on this journey as well. Everyone has different availability. I won't look at Charles's because you have been looking at Charles for all day. So let's go to Wante. So let's say you're going through and you're like, ooh, who's Wante? You see that she's 58. You love her superpower. You love the areas that she can support in, and you want to schedule a call with her. All you do is schedule a session. You'll be able to pick a date and a time. And then once you book it and you confirm, you'll get an email, you'll get a text confirming it, and you'll get an email and a text letting you know that it's happening. And then all the sessions are confidential. You have unlimited sessions with unlimited guides about unlimited topics. You do not pay for this. This is paid for by your employee. So again, if we're talking about investment, we talked about investments into your relationships. Hold on. We talked about investments into your money. This is also an investment into your growth and who you get to become as well. Um, but it's also an investment that your employer made for you that's free that you can utilize. I am not kidding you. I know coaches and financial advisors who charge thousands of dollars. And I'm sure their wisdom is great and amazing, but the fact that we all get this for free is unbelievable. And you get the support, it is here for you. So you can have a phone call, you can have a video call, you get to select on the day of when you're logging into the session, but Life Guides is here for you. So that's how you would use our guides and book a session. And also, every guide has a welcome video as well. So if you want to get a little feel for their vibe, you can. Or if you're looking for someone with specific availability, you can select it here. Or if you're looking maybe for someone who's bilingual or has experienced disabilities, you could select that as well and it'll narrow it down for you. So, I wanted to share how to find someone to help you on your journey. But, Charles, as we're coming to an end, we have just about a minute left. Do you have any final words for those who have been here with us today?
Um, it was enjoyment to be here to talk with you, as always. The biggest thing is just start thinking as things, how am I using my money to get the biggest impact for my life? Don't be the statistic. You don't have to be a statistic. It's all about the mindset, and what you do today can change tomorrow. And we may not be able to change today, but we can change tomorrow. It takes baby steps, and baby steps are fine.
Mm, so beautiful. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, today's session was only for educational and informational purposes. If you are looking for deep, deep, deep financial advice, you can find certified financial advisors elsewhere. But if you're looking for education, support, and information, Life Guides is here to help you. Thank you all so much for being here. We hope to see you on the mentorship call live next week. And I'm also dropping Charles's direct link for Life Guides in the chat should any of you like him specifically. There is a survey that pops up at the end. Please fill it out. There's a place for your testimonials. For those of you who have been following along on the journey and are noticing results, please share your results. And if you'd like to leave a love letter for Charles, you can leave it there. If you have any questions for next week's session for the mentorship, you can just put it in the testimonial box and I'll decipher through it. But outside of all that, we know that you are going to have a great week and we know that you are going to start setting yourself up for all of the beautiful tomorrows that have yet to come in your lifetime. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Charles, for your wisdom, and we will see you all soon. Bye, everyone.